All right, y'all. We are back with here another episode here on the Zachary's Journey account here. And here we have a special guest, a dear friend of Zachary's. But before we get into him, I'll kick it to you, Zachary. Like, just say hi to the people and give everyone an update as to what's going on in your life.
Hi everybody. On this episode, I wanted to introduce not only about my story, but about people that inspire me to keep my journey going. Because as I spoke about my disability in the last episode, it's difficult for me to navigate this world on my own. So I'm starting to bring people that I look up to, that I'm inspired by, and I have my friend Sean Dineen joining us today.
Well, hello, everybody, and may I thank you, Zachary, for your most kind invitation. We we have a commonality. We both have cerebral palsy, but we met through a wonderful program called Theater for Everyone at the Paper Mill Playhouse in Millburn, New Jersey. It was taught by my dear friend and mentor, Leslie Finelli, and later on, Mary Guzmandi. And we both share a common belief in the value of theater as an educational and social tool. And I think the public isn't really aware of people with our disability as productive adults. They see the children on the telethons, and but that's as far as it goes, and there's a lot more to life than that. So I like to think that in a small way, Zachary, I can show the world, just as you have, what it means to have a disability as an autonomous adult.
It's a really great thing that you're using theater and in the whole acting perspective, but there's not enough disability inclusion in today's acting world. So great job. I think you guys are really doing a great job with paper memory and to be a student there for the past 2 years. It's been a great experience.
You have given a great deal to the project, if I may say so. My background is academic. I'm a history professor um, with a bachelor's in history and a master's in liberal studies and a doctor of letters in disability inclusion as well as history. So I find theater itself very therapeutic and very enjoyable because, as you found out, Zach, which you knew already, a lot of the young people we were working with had been written off by society. But we showed with encouragement that they could accomplish a lot. We fell away from the two traps of infantilization on the one hand, overprotecting people, and harshness in the name of independence on the other. We found that golden median, as Socrates says, that I think proved very helpful.
Yeah, I believe just because people use an AC device, and for people who don't know, an AC device is a communicator where people communicate. We're all the same. If we use a communicator to talk, everybody should be included.
Absolutely. I use a wheelchair outdoors anyway, and in my home I move around on my knees because it's an older house with some stairs in it. But I've been blessed to have these degrees, to work with wonderful people like you. Um, I think the world doesn't really realize. I mean, I have friends with mobility problems that are lawyers and doctors and professionals of all kinds. We need a little more focus on that and a little less focus on the treatment of the week, whatever that might be.
So, Sean, I do have a couple questions for you that I want to touch on.
Go right ahead.
Um, so what inspired you to encourage in the acting industry about your disability? Because that is a difficult topic to educate people with disability, but to do it with acting is extra stuff.
Well, I became interested because of a group called VSA Arts of New Jersey. It's an international disability theater organization, and it's all over the world. It was actually started by Jean Kennedy Smith, President Kennedy's sister, many years ago. But I've always been a writer. I write plays for fun. I write historical articles. I have a podcast of my own called Things You Don't Know, 4275 on YouTube. It's about history things with a gentleman that you know, Zachary, my good friend, Dr. William Weaver.
Yes, I had the honor to be one of the guests on that podcast as well.
So I think writing like art or sculpture or scientific research is a wonderful way of producing positive energy. It's very easy to sit around, oh, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, I'm in terrible pain. And either you feel sorry for yourself or you just sort of shut down. But you, Zach,
Yeah.
have a leading example, what Carl Jung would call an archetype of a positive, constructive, forward-thinking attitude.
Sean, I said this on other episodes, but I'm going to say it again. When I get my mind to something, I don't stop until I achieve it.
I find that is the case with many of us. I have a friend named Sarah Bogdan, who I went to kindergarten with, who's a medical doctor with cerebral palsy. And she's the same way. When you get your teeth into something metaphorically, we won't stop. There's an old African saying that I love. It goes, I'm going to be me as I am, and you can jail or beat or kill me. I will not be what you think I ought to be. In other words, everyone follows their own path.
Yeah. But I do I noticed with you incorporate Star Wars in history. Why did you want to incorporate Star Wars into history?
Because it's what Joseph Campbell, the great philosopher and writer, called the hero's journey. And I felt in a small way, we're all going on that. We make a conscious choice at the beginning of our lives, without minimizing difficulties that are very real, to seek out our best selves. And we go through what Campbell called the call to adventure and finding of friends and mentors, being what he called in the belly of the beast, undergoing a great trial and coming out of it. So that story, George Lucas created that Star Wars story in the 70s for what he called a generation growing up without fairy tales. So what all good literature does, and film is a different branch of literature, is to find a hero and put them in a difficult situation, and with the help of their own inner strength, help them to get out of it. So you see that in history all the time. Look at the founding of the United States. It's 250 years since we became an independent country this year. Now, can you imagine a bunch of shopkeepers and farmers taking on the British Empire, the most powerful nation in the world with the greatest navy and a huge army? But we said to ourselves, we want rights as intelligent human beings, not privileges that a monarch or a noble class can take away from us whenever they think we don't deserve it. So what we are doing, Zach, you and I, on a small scale, we are replicating that individual struggle and achievement in our own way.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I never thought of it like that.
And I became interested in writing a doctoral thesis because I'm the son of a Vietnam veteran. And my late father had a great many struggles. He was a corpsman in Da Nang, and I didn't know him as well as I'd like because of a number of things, but I wanted to understand his struggle. So I started looking at a very important non-military aspect of war called counterinsurgency, which is basically propaganda, military resettlements, reward programs, other nonviolent things to convince people to change sides. Why it had not worked in Vietnam, but did work in Taiwan, Malaysia, certain parts of Southern Africa at that time that was coming out of a colonial system. So when I went over and researched all this, I found that people with disabilities played a very important role on all sides. So I had to explore that. And that's where this whole dissertation came from.
Now, wow, that, I don't even know what to say because I find your story very inspiring.
Well, I'm inspired by you. Look at your relationship with Carlos and all of the wonderful things that came out of that, because you were at a transitional point where you could have given up on life. You could have said, "Oh, I'm disabled. I'm not doing anything." And Carlos and your loving family and other people around you said, "You are not a victim. You have had some rough things, and there's no sugarcoating that, but you made a conscious choice to transcend what C.S. Lewis called immediate sensory experience." What that means is you saw the problem you had at the moment, but you decided, because of Carlos and Anthony here and other people around you, to maximize your own potential, which you've done with the acting and the speaking and all these other wonderful things you're working on.
I had no choice but to keep going, but it's people like you and people that I surround myself with a big part of my journey and who I am becoming. So I thank you and Anthony to wanting to make tribute to that.
Of course.
Yes, it's
Now,
our pleasure.
my question, I guess, to the both of you, like, what would you think? What do you think motivates you and inspires you guys to continue? Because obviously, you guys have done a lot, right? And you guys have gone through a lot throughout your lifetime. But like, what inspires you to continue going and pushing forward, or even achieving new levels?
When somebody tells me that I can't do something, I don't know about you, Sean, but for me, I will. I want to do everything possible to prove them wrong.
You're quite right. There's an old saying. I have a dear friend who was actually the first woman. Her name's Karen Kloop, the first woman to ever get a college degree with my type of cerebral palsy in the 70s. She had been stuck in separate schools and then labeled as almost having Down syndrome. So she sued the state of California and became a dance instructor because she had used dance for rehab in childhood. And her example has motivated me. The example of my mother and my late grandparents who moved heaven and earth to get me an education, to get physical rehab, surrounded me with books and music and all these wonderful things so I wouldn't feel too frustrated and give up.
So Sean, what do you think we should do as disabled people ourselves? How do you think we can like change their minds that look just because we're different, we're still unique and we still have a bright future ahead of us?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is break down stereotyping. There is an old-fashioned idea that a disability of any kind means a blank government check. Like, for example, a doctorate that I worked on, they normally take about 3 years. It took me 15 because people assumed that disability organizations would finance my work. And I went to them looking for help, and they told me to go to a sheltered workshop and put boxes together.
Wow.
So we have to break down that stereotype. I mean, there are valuable programs. We're both looking at a good one right now that could finance some things, but we also, I think we just have to make ourselves visible. My dear friend, Dr. Andrew Kramer, one of the pioneers of the physical therapy movement, who was sort of a second father figure to me, had a saying, you cure meat, you cannot cure people. In other words, the problem, the disability, the exceptionality, as Dr. Weaver calls it, is not going away, but it is no reason not to believe that with the right kind of support, you can't do something.
Yep, that's very true. Uh, for me, Sean, I like to say, I don't like to say the word disability because I think disability is a negative word. So I like to call it uniquely able people.
That is a good phrase. I will have to keep that in mind.
That's really good.
I was also inspired by another dear friend of mine, a young woman named Brooke Ellison, who was paralyzed as a very young girl and went to Harvard, graduated from Harvard on a ventilator. And because she couldn't get the care she needed, her own mother, Jean Ellison, went with her, moved in the dorms with her, went to every class, and people damned her as enmeshed and overprotective, but she made her daughter's success as a professor and a human being possible. So I think about her, and there is a wonderful movie about her life. The late Christopher Reeve, who was Superman and himself paralyzed, did a movie about her. It's called A Brooke Ellison Story, so you might want to look at that someday. But
So,
I just think that there are millions of people out there like you and I, Zach, and we each in our own way are. We don't want to pretend there aren't obstacles because there are, but there is some we possess, as Alan Drury said, some demon that will not let us sit idly by. Something that says, you have been called by God and history to do something wonderful.
Wow.
yeah, you're,
Wow.
you're very right, Sean. And I learned a lot about you. I learned a lot from you, Sean, so thank you.
And I've learned a great deal from you, Zachary, because of you are the most persistent person I've ever met. And when there's times when I was going through all this hoo-ha with the doctorate, now I'm trying to raise funds to do more research and get my dissertation published. And I would be lying if I didn't say there were times I get frustrated and say, am I banging my head against the wall? But I think of you, I think of Brooke, I think of Hannah and all the other wonderful souls in our classes who have all in their own way against Herculean impossible odds done things that typical people think are impossible.
Do together we can do amazing things. I'm, I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Yes, we are lucky to live in a society that has embraced inclusion. Is the battle won yet? No. But just the fact that I am sitting here with a PhD and you were sitting here, Zach, with a published book, and we are not in an institution strapped to a bed somewhere the way our less fortunate brothers and sisters were for a long time, it is a symbol, is an embodiment of progress.
So, Sean, when I was growing up, people always told me, oh, sit by the TV and just watch cartoons all day. Was that the case for you?
There were some who did, but as I said, I was blessed with a mother who has been a psychiatric nurse for decades, who fought and fought and fought to get me educated. My late grandparents, my grandmother taught second grade for 40 years. My grandfather was an artist. They took me on research trips all over the country and got me books, which in a pre-internet age was not always easy to do. But those two and Dr. Kramer, my therapist, and many others, they just said it. They didn't pretend that it was going to be easy, and it wasn't. But they said, we're with you. We love and support you. We value what you're trying to do. Don't give up. It'll work out somehow. And by the grace of God, it has on the whole.
And Sean, I believe not everybody can be working for the disabled community. There needs to be educated educated because a lot of these educators are not fully educated about people with disabilities, and it needs to be more inclusion about
You,
that.
you're quite right. We are, in a sense, Zach, we are living educators. I will tell you one very interesting story. When I did my doctoral research for my doctorate letters from Drew University in Madison, New Jersey, I had to travel with Hannah, who you know, and her mother to Australia and South Africa. And those are two nations that are further along on the inclusion path than the United States is even now. South Africa has had full inclusion since the early 1960s. It was the one good thing the white apartheid regime did. It's ironic, but it's true. That's another chapter in my dissertation, how even non-democratic governments, for their own reasons, advance that cause a little further. So we went and saw politicians and wonderful schools over there. It is an amazing. I mean, you've been to Taiwan. You know that what they're doing over there has gone all the way back to the Chiang Kai-shek era in the 50s and 60s. Taiwan is a pillar of inclusion also.
Yep. It, it's so amazing how other countries, how much you come up from other countries, and just their background history and all that stuff. I find it very amazing.
Well, that's why I also wrote a play that was originally written as an undergrad about that walking that tightrope, getting the assistance each of us need without surrendering control over your life. Because there are people that will only help you on their terms, and there are other people who, in the name of independence, want to throw you into the water and see how you swim. Neither approach is effective.
Speaking of a play, we should probably tell the viewers that we have a play coming up in in, in early May. We're
We do.
working on a play with one of my awesome friends, Harrison, that we were writing a play about disability inclusion.
It's really an amazing work, and it's been a real joy to be a part of it. I thank you for that privilege, Zachary. I know you've entrusted some of this work of yours to Harrison and to me, and we are both very grateful for it.
I'm excited for the, for the world to see what we put together because it was a lot of work behind the scenes.
Yes, that's why I want to take this other story that I wrote, which is called Journey to Healing, and put it up on a podcast. Or I don't have the funds to rent a theater, but my original performance video of it was destroyed. So I expanded it and would like to do it again. And I think you could play a role in that, Zachary, if you like. And
I
uh,
will be honored. So
if I can get the funds together, Anthony, I'd be happy to throw some money your way for some guidance, because I I am an idea writer, but I'm not very good at the technical aspects of putting something up on a podcast. I'm
Right,
learning
right.
it. You know, I don't know where the pictures go, and editing is difficult. I'm better than I was, but I'm not at your level just yet. So I hope that something I can learn something from you as well.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Um, I want to just add, man. Just listening to, obviously, I've gotten the honor to know Zachary for quite a bit here, and then just hearing your story, Sean. Man, I it makes me put things into perspective, right? Sometimes I feel like, you go through life, and sometimes life throws its best at you, and sometimes I feel like I'm overwhelmed, and maybe in those times I do um indeed feel overwhelmed, and I probably had at you know in my right to feel that way. But then I see people like the both of you who have endured so much, and then um, but are accomplishing so much at the same time, and then not only having to have the troubles that come with having a condition like the both of you have, but then also have life to live, right? And the struggles of life, the ups and downs of life, like in your case, Sean, I'm sure getting all your degrees and then putting together the doctor stuff and everything like that, that came with its own problems. And in
It did.
Zachary's
I
case,
mean, I loved it, but I would be lying if I didn't say, I mean, the writing of it all. I've written almost 300 pages and I've got another 100 or so to go. And that's some challenge. I would be totally BSing you if I didn't say that wasn't a challenge. But for me, that's my idea of a good time. I'm looking up what the Supreme Court in Indonesia said about this. Why there's lime coke over in Canada this week. That's a little joke that Zachary and I have. That's my favorite drink in the world. It's very hard to get. So
right,
whenever I go someplace, they got any lime coke over here?
right. But man, yeah, I mean, just being able to hear your story, what I mean, it allows me to put things into perspective, and you too, Zachary, just being able to see, everything you've gone through, and then losing loved ones and all that. Just you guys have both or are both, really impacting me. Just sitting here, I feel honored to be able to be a part of this conversation, even if I'm a fly on the wall, So
Well,
it's
we
amazing.
feel the same about you. Your hat there says Miracle Academy. Well, I I would not be able to have survived if it were not for my religious faith. I mean,
Right.
I don't impose my beliefs on anyone else, but I believe there's a God that is watching over me, and there is an ultimate purpose for your lives, Anthony, and yours, Zachary, and mine. If I didn't see that, then the temporary frustrations, and they're very real, would overwhelm me.
Absolutely.
But I believe that if I do my best, we're all human, we're all going to make mistakes. But if we just keep trying, the creator of the world, whatever we know him as, sees that and
Right.
blesses us for it.
Right. Right.
Anthony, I never asked you this question, but how do you feel about being with, uh, not, not being with a disability, but having the pleasure of working with people with a disability? And how do, what is your initial reaction with people with disabilities?
Um, how well, I'll answer the latter first. My initial reaction, I didn't really have much of a reaction because I just didn't, I know there's a lot to be learned, right? And I know, especially someone like me, like I don't know much about, different disabilities and stuff like that. So I know that there's a lot to be learned on my end. So like me working with you um on a day, on a week to be week basis, it's just been, I've learned a lot, right? I've learned a lot, just like as I was saying earlier, just being able to put things in perspective, right? And just watching, how you operate. There's been plenty of times where I've felt like, I'd be going through something. I'm like, I'm done. I'm not going to continue this. But then I think of people like you, right? And I'm like, man, if Zachary's able to continue moving forward, right, and Zachary's able to continue pursuing his goals, pursuing his dreams, and everything like that, and that's not to say it's without struggle, but it is to say that you continue regardless of what, right? That in itself, is something that's valuable to me. I hold it at high esteem, and it's been amazing, to be able to learn, more about cerebral palsy, and then just see how you guys just are able to adapt, right? And that's the important thing.
Here's the way I see it, and I don't know if you see it too, Sean, but if we don't do it, who's gonna do it for
Yeah, what happens is
us?
you sort of get a stubbornness in your spirit that sometimes seems like it isn't the best to other people, but within reasonable limits, you have to follow your own heart and your own conscience. I'll give you an example. When I was younger and I was fighting my way out of special ed into mainstream classes, the argument was never about the academics. They would talk about social skills because I didn't socialize a lot. I did a lot of reading. I hung around with older people. I wasn't with my peers as much. And I always felt that I had a window to learn things in, and that was more important. I mean, recreational things are wonderful, but at your core, you have to make a conscious decision. And once you've done that, then there's almost nothing that will really stop you.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm a little older than Zachary, so I came up just as the movement for inclusion was happening. I'm actually 52, and I got my cerebral palsy from being premature born. Thank God my mother had gone to college in Marymount, Virginia, and she gave birth to me in a place that had the first premature ICU NIC units, as they call them, in the world. And had I been born somewhere else, particularly in the 70s, I might not have made it. But thank God the Almighty had different plans, I guess.
Right. Right.
Everything happens for a reason. And your purpose is to inspire people with your disability. Just keep doing the amazing work that you do.
Well, when I teach, when I write, when I do these things like we're doing now, Anthony, I just get a real sense of peace that tells me I'm on the right track.
Right.
And everybody's
Right.
got to figure that out for themselves. I mean, my friend Sarah Bogdan, who's a doctor with cerebral palsy, I couldn't do that. I would be looking at the blood and I'd probably pass out. But to her, it's a vocation, a calling. She's also what they call a member of the Order of Consecration, which is a
Right.
Catholic thing where you live like a nun without necessarily wearing a habit or living in a convent. She's a great mentor. Brooke was, I know so many, and I was just blessed. And I feel an obligation to do the best I can to pay it forward, as they say.
Right. Right.
So, if I may ask, Zachary, what do you think our next move is? We're going to finish up this play that you and I are working on.
Finish the play that we're working on, and also I'm working on my book, and you'll be a great deal helping me with that. And I know you wanted to record a audio version about that. So,
Oh, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. And like I said, I want to get this play of mine up somewhere because the university that I work for, have been working for, had said that'd be a very positive thing towards getting me hired again, that and getting this research done. So that's my goal for the next 6 to 8 months. I hope to heaven that this grant I'm trying to get, which will give me the money to go to Taiwan and to go back to South Africa, because when you go with a group, it's very nice, but they want to look at animals. I don't have time for that. I want to talk to the politicians,
yeah.
and get these paperwork, which
Right.
is hard to get because it's not available on the internet. But I am confident something will work out somehow.
Sean, I'm open to it. I'm open to do any project that comes my way. If I like it,
Okay, so
I'll do
what I think maybe what we could do, once again, if the funding comes through, um, after we do your work, the work we're doing, maybe we could put this play up on Zachary's Journey, or at least excerpts of it.
Yeah, that would be great. And maybe Anthony could help us be part of it too.
I would love that. I mean,
Right.
I really feel that you have a unique, what the Germans call a Weltanschauung. It means worldview. Excuse the
Right.
$20 words here, but that's just the way I talk.
Because
No, it's fine.
because guys, I just finished my script for the play, so that's great.
Oh, I'm glad we were. I was looking at that the other day. I was very impressed with what you wrote and what Harrison wrote. So I'm very glad to hear that. Well, Zachary, did you have any more questions? I think I've said what I want to say.
So, Sean, since you mentioned the play, can you give a brief synopsis about the play to my viewers?
Oh, yours, certainly. Well, it is a story of a young woman who was put in detention, and she's hearing from her grandfather the grandfather's story of how he wasn't originally nice to a young man with a disability, and how they became friends, and then there was an estrangement that leads to an ultimate reconciliation. So it's basically how Ayn Rand once said that all friendship has to start with violent antagonism. So how you get from that to the deep, what the Greeks call philos. Greek has three words for love: eros, from which we get the word erotic, that's romantic love; sex; filio, which is the love of family and friends; and agape, which is the love of the divine and the natural world. So how they develop this intimate friendship. The word intimacy has come to only mean sex, but it means a lot more than that.
Right.
So that's the Reader's Digest version of our story. It
And
goes in
and
several directions, but
I I didn't come up with this play. Harrison, a friend of mine, came up to me and was like, "I really like your input, and I would like it if you could help me put this play together." So I was like, "Okay, I'll do what I can," but and then I was like, "Oh, maybe Sean could be a great influence in this play too."
oh yeah,
So I
that was
wanted to incorporate
a
Sean
lot of
in.
fun.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think that sums up what you were saying. Not to cut you off, Zachary. I just mean you gave a very
yeah.
effective explanation here.
Right.
Thank you both. I've really enjoyed this.
So,
Yes.
Sean, is there any way my viewers can find you in the social media platforms?
Oh, absolutely. They can find me on Facebook under Sean Dineen. That's Sean, last name Dineen. And they can find me on my podcast, which is Things You Don't Know, 4275 on YouTube. We've got 270 episodes there. Zach has mentioned one of them. My friend Karen has mentioned. We just did a very interesting one on the history of rugs and how they contributed to heating homes. We have silly things like soft ice cream and more serious stuff. One of my favorites is the role of African Americans on both sides of the Revolutionary War, the enslaved people and free people alike. It's a really fascinating story.
And guys, it, it has been a pleasure having you both here today. And
You're very welcome.
I'm, I'm very, I'm very honored that you wanted to be a part of this podcast.
Oh,
And
yes.
thank you for being a great access to this episode and maybe in the future episode too.